Welcome, I'm Chef Neil, and this is The Culinary Chemist. This series of videos is designed to take classic gourmet cuisine and to bring it into your home, to simplify it so you can produce these fantastic dishes that professional chefs create in their restaurants. You can do it simply at home. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am classically trained in escoffier French cuisine. Today we're going to be talking about one of the very essential basic recipes, which is a standard chicken stock. And we're going to go ahead and make this stock, and I'm going to show you how to make it. And it's used for a variety of different dishes, from sauces to soups. So let's get ready. I'm going to bring out the ingredients and show you what we're talking about. Okay, so we're going to be making a very classic basic stock. We're going to make a chicken stock today. And you can make any type of stock. You can make a beef stock or a fish stock. In the case of fish, it's called a fish fumet. But in our case today, we're going to make a classic chicken stock. So our primary ingredient, we're going to need chicken bones with most or all of the meat protein removed, just the bone. And we need those defrosted. And we're going to thaw those out and roast them with a grouping of ingredients. And in this case, we have a very classic mirepoix, which is a French word meaning this classic grouping of onion, celery, and carrots. So what we're going to do is use the same standard ratio. Quantity doesn't matter, but you should always have 2-part onion to 1 part celery to 1 part carrot. So what we're going to do is peel and chop all of that, and we're going to roast it with the chicken bones, and then we're going to add some tomato paste, and in this case I'm using a full tomato to represent the tomato paste, but we're going to add a tomato paste to it to give it flavor and color as well. Once we roast all of those ingredients, and we're going to take those, put those in a pot with water and start to cook them in a certain way, and then we're going to add this sachet. The sachet is a French term as well. It's the grouping of these herbs to flavor the stock. And what's classic is the parsley stems, just the stems, not the tops, and also the peppercorns and thyme. And you can use fresh thyme as preferred. I have dry thyme here, but that works just as well. And then I personally like to use bay leaf. Bay leaf has a very fragrant flavor and really adds a lot to the complexity of the stock. So those are the primary ingredients. What we'll do is put all this together and show you how it's prepared. Okay, so let's get started with the cutting the onion. We have a classic chef's knife, okay? And what we want to do is peel and cut this onion. You like to cut the onion, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. We refer to a fruit or an onion as the earth. This is the South Pole, this is the North Pole. So when you're cutting an item, you can either cut from north to south or from east to west. So east to west would be this way, north to south would be this way. In this case, I'm going to cut the 2 poles off. And I'm going to just peel this onion. And I always like to keep a little bowl next to me as my trash for my compost. I'm going to go ahead and peel this onion. And then I'm going to show you the easiest way to cut an onion. And by the way, people wonder why onions make them cry. And there are all sorts of myths and discussion about it. But the truth is, the reason that you cry when you cut an onion is because your knife is dull. So if you have a sharp knife, you'll never cry with an onion. Okay, so first what we're going to do is we're going to cut this onion north and south. When we cut it north and south, I'll show you that the way the onion grows is the root is here and it grows up here, and this is where the leaves are. Okay? What you want to do is always have the root side away from you. So when you cut, the root will hold the rest of the onion together. And all you have to do is decide how big you want the cuts. And then cut once in. Now it's still all held together because we didn't cut the root end. We're going 3/4 of the way in. See it? Okay. And we're going to go ahead and just dice this onion. That's about a 1/4 inch dice. That's exactly what we want. And it comes out perfect every time. Okay, and I usually take the last little bit, the root, and I scrap that. So go ahead and cut up your onion. I'll do the second half the same exact way. You check the root side. Okay. We're not in a race here. We're not trying to do this too quickly. Be careful of your hands. Remember, whenever you cut anything, always hold your knuckles out. Don't use your fingertips. You don't want to cut your fingertips. You want to keep your knuckles out. You can never get cut that way. Okay? Alright, so our onion is all cut and ready to go. And we're going to go ahead and collect that. I'm going to put it in a bowl. And we have our carrots, and you want to peel your carrots fully, and then you want to just cut the ends off. That's our next ingredient to go in. Okay. And when you cut the carrots, you just want to cut those ends off, nice and clean. You want to keep a consistent cut. And what I like to do is just the rings. If it's a very thick carrot, like this one is real thick on the end here, what I'll do is I'll cut that part and then just cut it right down the middle so we get some consistency. Okay? Because remember, these are not going to be used for presentation. These are just going to be used to flavor the stock. So you don't have to really worry too much about how they look. But you want consistency just so you can do a nice job. And it's the right way to do it. Alright, so here we have our carrots. Okay, let's put those off to the side. And finally, we're going to cut our celery. And again, remember the ratio. It's going to be a 2 to 1. And I do the same thing with the celery. Is I'll cut. If it's a little bit wide, I'll cut it and break it down a little bit so it's a little bit smaller. And you can use the leaves of the celery. That's okay. It adds flavor. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, let's just take that piece. I don't like the way it looks. Okay, so here you have your ingredients. You have 2 parts onion, 1 part celery, and 1 part carrot. So now we're ready to take all of our ingredients, our carrots, celery, onions. We have our tomato paste that I've diluted. It's a little bit thinner. And then we have salt and pepper to season, some olive oil, and we have, of course, our chicken bones. What I like to do is I just like to coat that pan a little bit, give it a little bit of olive oil. And one of the things that I do is just kind of spread that out a little bit. Okay. And you want to layer your pan with the chicken bones. And you also want to go ahead and put in your mirepoix, your onions, your celery, some people like to put the onions, carrots, and celery on the bottom. I prefer to put it on top of the bones, and then I move it around as it cooks, as we roast those bones. And then put a little bit of the tomato paste. And then finally, go ahead and season those with salt and pepper to taste. A nice coating. And some crushed black pepper. Okay, and now we're going to place this in the oven at 350 to 400 degrees, depending upon your oven. Every oven is a little bit different. I usually start at 350 and keep it there. And we'll roast that until the bone's brown and we start to see that the onion and celery start to break down a bit. It'll get very juicy and flavorful, and then we incorporate all that into the water, which is going to be our next step. So let's move forward and get this in the oven. Okay, we're going to put our stock ingredients in the oven at 350 and let it. So here we have the final product. We're going to take a look, and it's been roasting for about an hour and a half, which is a long time for a small amount like this, but I like to get it really well done. And it creates, you see that layer on the bottom? That's called the fond. That's where all the flavor is. So I like to create a fond, F-O-N-D. So let's go ahead and put this in the pot. All right, here we go. So now we have the final product, and we're going to incorporate it into the stock pot. So what we've done was we put some water in there, and make sure that the water covers all of the product. So we're putting the roasted chicken bones and the carrots and celery, and you can see how nicely the onions have broken down, the celery and the carrots have all cooked down. Any of the fond that's stuck to the bottom of the pot, or rather to the bottom of the pan, should be deglazed. And what we mean by deglazing is if you have anything that's stuck like this, that has a lot of flavor in it. You want to put some liquid there and apply heat, and that will allow it to come off, and then you can put that into your stock for added flavor. I like to use sherry. Some people just use water, but I like to put a little bit of sherry, so I'll put some sherry and then I'll put it back onto the hot stove, and just to get it boiling a little bit and to deglaze some of those beautiful caramelized sugars, the natural sugars from the protein. All right. Okay, so what I've done was I put the pan on the heat, and you can hear it a little bit. It's starting to sizzle. And you just want to take the sherry wine and put it over the fond. And you'll see it start to separate. There it goes. That's what you want right here. See how nice it comes off? And you want to add that to your stock pot. Now, wherever you put the heat, it will come right off. So just do that with the entire pan. While that is deglazing, I want to shift our attention over to the stock pot and just mention that we have all of our ingredients in here. In a minute, we're going to put the deglazed sherry wine and fond in here, and then we're going to add our sachet. So that's next. The sachet is going to add the flavor and give it the flavor profiles that we're looking for. Okay, and here we go. So you can see how I've deglazed that entire pan, and that is full of flavor. Look at that. That is awesome. That's going right in to our stock. Now, I should mention, you want to get the stock nice and hot and get it on what they call a lazy boil. You really don't want it to boil. Once it boils, if it boils too high, you're going to have the stock actually bubbling, and there is an albumin that comes out of the bone that you need to skim off the top. So if you let it boil or you stir it too much, that albumin is going to get mixed in it, and it's going to make your stock really cloudy. You want to avoid doing that. So what you want to do is bring it to a lazy boil just about when it's about to boil, and then stop it right there, get real hot, and you'll start to see this albumin. If you look, it looks like little bubbles. And as this progresses, we'll come back to the pot and show it to you and how we skim it off. So that, okay, so we've got some progression here. You can see here's the albumin. See all this? It looks like foam on top. You want to remove that carefully and not mix it in. And you can see that we're not quite boiling. It's just about boiling. But you have to really nurture this stock and keep on skimming off that albumin as it comes up. And just continue that, and eventually you'll get it all, and then you can just discard it when you're finished. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put together our sachet. And all we have to do is basically cut the tops off of the parsley. You just want the stems. So you're going to remove this. use that for garnish or something somewhere else, but you don't need it for this. We're going to take our bay leaf, our parsley stems, our fresh or dry thyme, and our peppercorns, and we're going to put them in something that they can cook but not get lost in the stock. So some people like to take a coffee filter and dump everything in and then tie it off with twine and then just drop that into the pot, and that works perfectly fine. But what I found over the years is what works best for me is a little tea strainer. So instead of using this for tea, I just put all of my ingredients. I can take the bay leaf and break it up a bit. And take my parsley stems and just chop them a little bit more so they fit. You want to drop those in. And of course, don't forget your thyme. And then what I do is I just close that up. And we drop that in the pot with the chain hooked to the outside edge. So let's go ahead and do that. And that's your sachet. So now that will flavor the stock and make it delicious. And it's easy access when it's time to clear that stock. You can just pull that right out. Perfect. Alright, so our stock has been cooking on a very low boil, high heat, low boil for about 2.5 hours. And it is absolutely beautiful. So now what I'm doing is I'm removing the chicken and the sachet, and we're going to go ahead and strain it so we have our final product. Alright. So now we're just going to strain all of those ingredients out. There we go. And you have a gorgeous, fragrant chicken stock. It is so beautiful. Now, the more you let this cook down, the more concentrated it gets. So here's our final product. However, this is just the beginning. And what I mean by that is this stock is used to create sauces. We can make a velouté, we can make soups. So in the upcoming videos, what I want to do is show you some of the uses for this beautiful stock. Okay, looking forward to doing that. So that's it for today. We've made an incredible classic chicken stock. I hope you enjoyed it. So remember, if this was useful to you, please send us a like, and we'd love you to subscribe to the channel. I'm Chef Neil for the Culinary Chemist.